Oh my God. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Frida and this is my burnt orange. Right now everyone is stuck at home in a quarantine kitchen and I believe we should all know how to make bread. What you're gonna need today is 600 grams of plain flour, 50 grams of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of instant yeast, or 3 teaspoons, it's the same thing, 300 milliliters of water. It's best if it's warm because it accelerates the yeast development process, 1 tablespoon of butter or 15 grams of melted butter, 75 grams or 1/3 a cup of vegetable oil. So definitely feel free to double or triple or half this recipe, although why would you go through all that work for a little bit of bread? The recipe I've got is going to make 12 to 15 dinner rolls, or about three small loaves of bread. We eat in great amounts, and I'm also going to gift some bread to my neighbor. So I am making a whole lot of bread. Let's roll with it. Before we get started, let's talk about equipment. Now, you don't need a machine to make bread, but because I bake bread in such huge quantities, I've got me one of these and it changed my life. This is not a sales pitch. This is just a machine. We are going to use the dough hook. So I'm going to set it up. Do I want to knead? No, I don't want to knead. So if you're going to bake bread, if you don't have a machine, if you're thinking about getting a machine, just get one. It makes life so much easier. All right, so I like to start by activating the yeast. Now, if you're using instant yeast, there's no need for this. You can just throw it in all together. But if you're anything like me and you bake once this year and not next year, then you want to do this, because this way, after 5 minutes, you can see whether your yeast is still alive or not. So, to 300 milliliters of water, add 3 teaspoons of yeast or 1 tablespoon. Add your sugar and leave that to work its way together for about 5 to 10 minutes. You may want to give your mixture a little stir. I find that it depends on the brand of yeast. Sometimes the yeast clumps up so much. So just give it a gentle bit of agitation so that it breaks up. There you have it, just after a few minutes. Woohoo, we're ready to roll. And now we add the rest of the ingredients. So I'm going to throw in oil, butter, going to sprinkle in the salt. The salt is really important when it comes to flavoring breads. And now for a whole heap of flour. Put on the hook. And away we go with mixing. Very low speed. There we go. One tip with long braids: cover your hair when baking. And it's coming together beautifully, and I can smell the yeast. It's actually a really pleasant smell. All right, so I've been kneading for a few minutes and we're just going to do a short little check. I like to do this to check for moisture. Okay, it's not ready yet, but I'm just showing you a test. It is a bit stretchy, which shows me that we have a good amount of moisture in the dough. but it's not smooth, so we're going to keep running. And as a guide for machines, 5 minutes is more than enough. 5 minutes of kneading, because a machine can very easily overwork the dough. And when dough is overworked, it starts fighting back. If you punch it, it will punch you back. Almost. Yeah, I'm quite happy with the moisture, but usually at this point, this is when, if it's really dry, I'll add just a tiny bit of water, but I'm really happy with this right now. And here we have it, guys. Look at that. I love the way this is looking. It looks almost sticky at the bottom, but trust me, this is what you want. This is how you know you're gonna get a nice soft dough, which will make a lovely fluffy bread. All right. Let's have a look at that. That's beautiful, guys. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it's not sticky at all. Look at that. Soft but not sticky. So, and this is why I love my dough scraper. I'm gonna scrape it all off. And remember, you can do all this by hand. I'm just making a whole big batch, so I'm using a machine. Satisfying. I love scraping every last bit of my dough hook. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do is put this into a glass bowl or any bowl to rise. There we go. Using my dough scraper to get the last few bits out. Oops. And then what I want to do is give it a stretch. And the bowl has been oiled so that it comes out easily, because like I said, it's quite sticky, but it's pliable. So here we go. It's a beautiful dough. Now I'm just going to cover it, leave that to rise for an hour or so, or until it has doubled in size. Then we're ready for the next step. And will you take a look at that? Our dough has doubled in size. It's ready for shaping. I'm going to take it over to my kneading surface. Simply punch out the air and take your dough out of the bowl onto a clean surface. And all you're going to do is gently knead it and then bring it up into a shape where you can divide it equally into 2 parts. You don't have to be exact, just eyeball it. Remember that I made twice the amount of dough as in the recipe I gave you, so I'm just going to divide it into 2 and keep one aside. Now we're going to work to this recipe. Just take your dough, divide it into 2. Then divide it into 2 more pieces. So you're going to divide it into 4 pieces. And this dough will make approximately 12 big rolls. And they are a really nice size. If you want to portion control, go ahead and make them into maybe 18 doughs, 15 to 18 dough balls. Then you know that you're eating just a little bit less with each serving. Next, shape each dough ball. I'm going to try and demonstrate how I do this. What you're going to do is pretty much pull the edge of the dough over and bring it to the center. So use your left palm, the middle of your left palm, to create a smooth outer surface for the dough, and then bring in the edges and bring them into the center. Let's see if we can slow it down a bit for you. Of course, professionals will use the kneading counter to do this, but I've always found this easier. One day soon, I hope I will try and demonstrate the other method. And there you have it. We are pinching it together into a nice, tight and neat dough ball. And now cover them and leave them aside in a warm place for the final proof. This will be about an hour and a half. And guys, that time is worth it because when it's done, look at the result. It's almost ready to eat. They look so beautiful. And now bake the bread in a preheated oven. The temperature you want is about 220 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes or until golden brown like these. And now you can utterly enjoy your freshly baked bread buns with oodles and oodles of butter and jam. Guys, my guilty pleasure is bread with jam and butter and a cup of tea. And if you're serving, why not brush them with some melted butter to allow them to glisten a bit. Enjoy!